Welcome to Hometown Heroes. This is Rick Irving with my co host Mary Staffeld. And today we have a friend of ours, Christopher Cook. He's an Air Force veteran and he's also the chief of police for White Settlement, Texas. Christopher, welcome to Hometown Heroes.
Thank you for the invite. Looking forward to having a good conversation today.
When we are too, our paths cross all the time at different functions, different organizations, and that's kind of where we met. And I know you've met Mary in the same kind of different places that we frequent, out at NAS JRB and Holidays and Heroes, Fort Worth Airpower Council. You remember the Fort Worth Airpower Council, like Mary and I. So there's just a lot of places that you're involved in. So where did you grow up, Chris?
Yeah, so kind of unique. I was actually born and raised in White Settlement back in 1974. Little apartment complex outside the gates. At the time, it was, I believe, General Dynamics there on Clifford. And it was called, I don't even remember the name, but it's now called Sky Landing. And so I was born there. My parents, my dad was working at the post office. My mom was working at a local Kmart when it was out on Cherry Lane. That was way before, the Walmarts and Sam's and all that. We had the movie drive-in theater, all that good stuff. And so kind of grew up out here, attended White Settlement schools. And at some point when I got into being a freshman in high school, transferred to a private Christian school, but still local in the area. It was over in River Oaks, and graduated from Castleberry Baptist. And so right out, probably within a week of graduating high school, I was already in the delayed enlistment program there with the Air Force and shipped off to basic training. And from there, back then, the Air Force was 6 weeks. And everything's at Lackland Air Force Base there in San Antonio. And got my technical school. I was assigned to transportation. And so did a little short stint there at Randolph. And then my first duty assignment was sent over to Kadena. Had no idea where Kadena was at. Matter of fact, when somebody told me it was in Okinawa, I said, it got to be a mistake because I had checked the box. I wasn't a volunteer to go overseas. And, of course, my training instructors kind of laughed and said, well, that's where you're going to make the best of it. And actually, Kadena was a really unique experience. Loved being over there. Of course, anybody that's ever been to Okinawa, Japan, the waters are beautiful. It's tropical and great snorkeling. The reefs are beautiful. It's a lot like Hawaii, if you will. And so did some time over there. And my last duty assignment was stationed at Andrews, more of kind of a headquarters kind of feel, if you will. But then I got out. My last 6 months or so, I was assigned to Reese Air Force Base. Of course, Reese is closed now. But I had a lot of family around Lubbock. So that was kind of like, it felt like being home because a lot of my family are cotton farmers up in Lamesa and Wolfforth and the Lubbock area, if you will. And so that was kind of my path into the military, was the enlisted route. And it's always, I've always tried to give back anytime I can when it comes to the military. And even when I, started my early law enforcement career in the mid 90s or so, and went to Arlington, I always looked for ways to partner, whether it was Toy for Tots with the Marine Corps, whether it was military appreciation days at any of our stadiums, the Rangers or the Cowboys. I would always participate in those because certainly I salute our men and women in uniform that are still defending, preserving, if you will, our freedoms even today. So that was kind of my pathway into the military. I got the bug while I was in the Air Force, wanting to be a police officer. That was really the reason I ended up in the Air Force. Now, you may be wondering, well, you didn't do military police. And so the reason I ended up in the Air Force, kind of a funny story here, in Texas, you have to be 21 to be a police officer. And so I knew right out of high school, I'm young. I'm thinking, all right, what can I do for the next 3 or 4 years until I can become of age to join law enforcement? So literally saw a recruiting station there on 183. Went into actually, there was a Marine Corps recruiting station. I was about a $1.15, sopping wet. And so they kind of, it's like, you might check our partners next door with the Air Force. They might have a job for you. Maybe that was them thinking there's no way this young kid is going to get through basic training at the Marine Corps. And so went over to the Air Force. Of course, the Air Force are like, you can do anything you want, and we'll pay for your college, all the typical things that go on there, the benefits. And that's how I ended up knowing that, hey, you know what? I'll spend my next couple of years serving. And that way, when I'm done, I will be of age and can join the police academy. Literally, I got out of the Air Force in the fall of '94. And by January '95, I was in the Tarrant County Police Academy. So just a couple months of getting out of the military. So I went right into policing, and I've been in law enforcement ever since that first day in January '95.
So you went into, did you become an officer with Fort Worth?
No, so my first assignment was with the sheriff's office. Back then, David Williams was the county sheriff, and they kind of had this deal, if you will. If you agreed to work in the jail, they would send you to the police academy for free. Of course, when you're young, you can do that. You can work at midnights in the jail and then spend all day doing the academics. I couldn't do that now at my age, but I was able to get through that. I want to say the police academy back in the mid-90s was about 580 hours or so of course instruction. So, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever that ended up being. And then when I graduated, I became a deputy sheriff with Tarrant County. I did that for a few years. A lot of people don't realize this, but I left the sheriff's office and actually became a police officer in White Settlement for a couple of years. That's when I went back to college, ended up taking advantage of some of the military benefits. Attended college here. It was Carswell Air Force Base at the time. And so they had a college called Columbia College. It's based in Missouri, but they had a campus here.
Yeah, they still do.
They still do. And that's where I got my undergraduate done, was at Carswell. As soon as I got my 4-year degree done, I went to the big metropolis of Arlington, Texas. And be honest with you, the only reason I left White Settlement, because I grew up here, it was fun being here, just wasn't a lot of money, and I had a new family, newborn. And so Arlington kind of enticed me because they had a college degree requirement and said, hey, if you leave White Settlement, come to Arlington, we'll pay you quite a bit more money. And that ended up being true. And so I went over to Arlington and spent almost 2 decades there and did a lot of different roles there. Like anybody, you start out on the streets, you're a patrol officer. I worked East Arlington for a few years, and then I worked North Arlington even before Jerry's World was there. That used to be a bunch of apartment complex there on Peach Street. Then the Cowboys built their stadium there, and I ended up in the traffic unit. I was assigned to freeway enforcement there. My corridor was I-20. So if I ever wrote you a speeding ticket on I-20, I apologize. But that was
thought I remembered you.
kind of my role for about 3 years or so. And then I ended up moving into what they call commercial vehicle enforcement, where we inspect the large commercial trucks. I did fatality crash investigations, did that for a couple years. And then I ended up on the highway interdiction team, which is basically trying to intercept drugs, leaving the border and trying to intercept cash headed back to the border. Probably one of the most fun I had was in that unit. And like anything else, you get promoted. I made sergeant and ended up in the media office. Then I made lieutenant and eventually made deputy police chief. And so most people know me from being the TV guy in Arlington for many years. I went into the media office in 2011 and was in that role for about 10 years or so until 2021. In 2021, they put me over schools because in Arlington, there's not a school district police department. The city handles law enforcement for Arlington ISD. So that was an interesting assignment. As you can imagine, lots of issues sometimes in schools. And so did that and then retired in April of 2022 as a deputy police chief. in Arlington, and was really just grateful. Wasn't even really looking for an opportunity. The reason I retired is this opportunity to come back home surfaced. So I kind of looked at it, and my city manager, Jeff James, he's still the manager today. He didn't know me at all, but he knew I was born and raised here, and so he took a little gamble there, and it's worked out. I've been here about 3.5 years or so, be 4 years next April, and just love being back home, and love the close knit of a small town. One of the things I love, and this, Rick, just being able to partner with the base and with Lockheed, that is the highlights of being the chief here. A lot of people, they don't realize that even though they have their own military police, they have, you've got Navy police on the base, you've got NCIS, Lockheed, they have a full security team with, highly competent, they have Air Force OSI, but it still requires teamwork. It still requires partnerships. And so we try to do everything we can on the outside of the fence line to help the military. Just today, before we did this podcast, we responded to the commercial gate over there on somebody that has some significant warrants that we're trying to get on base and stuff like that. So we're always looking for opportunities to help out our military friends, whether there's an air show in town like we did the Blue Angels, last April, phenomenal event, or like you mentioned, some of the programs, helping with the holidays for Heroes event, fundraising through the Airpower Council, whatever we can do to participate and help, we try to do that. That includes, a lot of people don't realize this, but White Settlement is one of the only police departments in the nation that actively patrols the base. And we have an interlocal memorandum of understanding. We can actually stop traffic on the base. We help them during school zone enforcement, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's more about just being there because, as you know, there's a lot of things going on in the world. And we know that the Navy and the rest of the reserve branches, they're really zeroed in and dialed in on what's going on across our globe. And so anything that we can do to alleviate some stress here at home, whether that's helping them with, again, traffic enforcement, patrolling, doing whatever we can do, that we're going to step up and do that. So love being back home and love everything to do to protect the base at all costs and make sure that they are here for many more decades for our community to enjoy.
And that's one thing we really need to protect. We lost that base one time and got it back. So
don't want to do that again. That was a disaster for the local economy, that's for sure. But you worked with some of my favorite people. I was a first sergeant at the 301st Security Forces, and Kelly Velder and Mike Wilson, both Arlington PD, and they were people I worked with.
Oh, yeah. Kelly, I believe, is still there. Mike,
I think so.
I don't know.
Mike is not.
No, he's not. Okay, yeah. I saw Kelly a couple months ago. He was at a Cowboys event.
Yeah.
But, yeah, good people. And certainly, yeah, the 301st, everything that they have going on. Because a lot of people think it's just a Navy base. Obviously, lots of different every branch is pretty much represented there. Yeah. And so we do a lot, anything from helping out during the summer events that they have going on, just trying to, again, be there, paint police in a different light that, hey, and I'll be honest with y'all, we got our certification. This is the third year in a row. It's through the Texas Workforce and Texas Veterans Commission. We hire vets program, and majority of the police officers that we hire are vets. And so it makes perfect sense that we get out there, get people to know us so that they have a second career if they're interested in policing, right, or even fire service. And then if it works out for us, because we know that's a great recruiting ground as well, because they're able not only to continue serving, but just in a different, more local capacity as well. So, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, when I deployed with security forces and we were in pre-deployment training, we were with our active duty brethren, and they thought that they were better than the reservists. And I was happy to share with them that, look over there. You see that guy? He's San Antonio gang. Look over there. That guy over there, he's Houston SWAT. Let me show you this guy, because most of our members of the security forces unit happen to be police officers full time as a civilian. And I told them, our guys see more action in a year than you all see your entire career.
Absolutely.
So tell me again how you're more qualified than them. So
Yeah,
I was always happy to share that bit of news.
Oh, there's always good camaraderie back and forth, no doubt. And we did, again, it just goes back to relationships, and we'll partner not only with our reserve wings, but also on the active duty side. But, I think what makes our base so nice to be able to participate with is you have just so many variety of people that, again, come from all different walks of life. Many of the folks that are out there, you hit the nail on the head. They have full-time careers, whether it's in aviation, law enforcement, public safety. And so they bring a wide array of experiences. And so I always tell our officers the same thing. Hey, you can lean on them, especially when we're doing an event at the base where they're going to be the SME, i.e. like the air show, doing traffic control or whatever we're responding to out there, right? They're going to know where the building number is at versus trying to find it on Google Maps. And so it goes both ways. But yeah, what a phenomenal testament. And we've had such a good run as of late. The base commanders, the COs have been very, just open arms to be able to allow us access to the base. Because, I'm on a committee. It's a national committee. It's called the International Association Chiefs of Police. It's called the Military and Civil Cooperation Committee. And, a lot of my peers on the committee around other parts of the United States, they struggle with having a positive relationship or even just having a relationship at all. And so I tell them like, hey, I'm not trying to make you envious, but that is not the case here in Dallas, Fort Worth. I mean, they always welcome us on base to be able to participate and do things with them.
And, we've had a long history of community involvement with the base, even going back to whenever the Fort Worth Airpower Council started in 1958. It was a car dealership, Frank Kent, I think, and the base commander at the time. And we started that a long time ago. And we've been very fortunate since NAS JRB has been here that we've had skippers that, have really gotten involved in the community and let the community in turn get involved with the base. Absolutely.
There are so many opportunities to participate. A lot of people don't even realize it. And then, I'm glad you brought up Frank Kent. I'm not sure if you're aware, but they moved their headquarters to White Settlement last year. Mm-hmm. They are now located there on the service road of 820 and White Summit Road. And Will Churchill and his sister Corey, we're good friends and visit them quite frequently. And they're always talking about, they love, of course, the sounds of freedom, right? Because when you live and work in White Settlement, you hear a lot of aircraft, especially now that the Air Force Reserve Unit are flying the F-35s. There's a lot of things going on over there. And so they are just great community folks, and they continue to really rally people together on the importance on going to these fundraisers and helping out wherever you can as a business leader. So we love having them back. They weren't too far down the road, but they were on the Fort Worth side. So we love the fact that Will and Corey moved their headquarters over here. And so they're doing a lot of stuff in the community.
In White Settlement, they have about 19,000 people. Is that about?
Yeah, around 20,000 or so. Okay. During daytime population, around 35,000 with Lockheed and the base. But our last census was around 19,500 or so. And so, that's small for Dallas, Fort Worth, but it's really large if you think across the entire state of Texas. And so, of course, we're surrounded by Fort Worth and other small cities, and a lot of people, don't realize our police department, we actually dispatch for many small jurisdictions. We handle dispatch and the jail services for Westworth Village, for Lakeside, for Sampson Park and Westover Hills. And then we also serve as the jail for the base and all of our federal partners. So, sometimes there are arrests made at the local installation or arrests are made at the Air Force plant. And so we just make it easy that they can just bring the prisoner here. And so we're able to provide that service to our local surrounding communities. And that makes it great because, as you're aware, We have quarterly threat working group meetings, and if we're all dispatched on the same channel, it helps the military base. It helps Lockheed kind of have broad awareness on what's going on in the community.
Okay. And the city of Fort Worth is kind of turned over 820 and part of Interstate 30 to White Settlement to patrol, haven't they?
Yeah, so we have an interlocal cooperation agreement with them, and we handle like Bomber Road. That's actually in the city of Fort Worth. We're just trying to make it easy on them, and we know that's kind of far out of their neighborhood districts. And so anything along Shoreview, Heron Drive, Bomber Road, Loop 820, I-30, yeah, we try to handle crashes out there. We try to handle traffic enforcement again, because, I come from a big department, and Fort Worth is certainly big. They have a lot of calls for service they have to deal with. So if we're able to kind of partner with them and handle some of the smaller things, that allows their officers to stay, active and available for other pressing or priorities that they have. And so, yeah, it's a great partnership. I have to tilt my hat to Neil Noakes. Now, he has since retired, but he was the police chief. I knew Neil when I worked at Arlington, and he didn't bat an eye when I asked him to help us with this agreement. So we were able to get it across the finish line. They're in the process of hiring a new police chief. That process should wrap up hopefully by the end of August or early September. I have no doubt, though, that nothing will change on that end. All the final candidates are all pro small city, pro military. And so really excited to see that process come to fruition so we can, again, continue, our relationship in the positive path that it's going.
And with your location, you touched the base, you touched Lockheed, you touched Fort Worth, you touched Westworth Village, and then I know that over at the Sam's and Walmart, you and Westworth Village kind of tag team that, don't you?
Yeah, so the Walmart and Sam's parking lots are in our city, including the Lowe's, all of those little small shops. Everything north of there is Westworth Village. But as you can imagine, if a shoplifter goes into Walmart, while the building may be Westworth, they always are going to escape in the parking lot. So that's why it behooves us to have a great relationship with Chief Kevin Reeves and his team. And yeah, so, we're all in the same dispatch channel. So anytime there's something major going on, our officers will partner with Westworth. They're a much smaller police department than us. Our police department's about 60 strong. I don't know the exact size, but they're certainly much smaller. And so if we can be a good partner and help them out, we try to do that as well. Same thing with Sampson Park, north of the lake, they're pretty small. Lakeside is super small. But again, even Westover Hills, Westover Hills, very safe community. But, if they're in a jam and they need assistance, we're going to head that way and help them out. And then they repay the favor as well. There's been times where we've had some significant calls in our town, and they'll come right over and try to help out where they can. So I really like that, because when I worked at Arlington, we had a great relationship with our neighboring, especially the small towns like Pantego, Dalworthy and Gardens, Mansfield, Grand Prairie. We all kind of talked the same language. We all, attended meetings together to really share intelligence and all that. Well, that's a natural byproduct of just bringing that over to the western side of Tarrant County. Before I was the chief, everybody was on their own channel. No one really knew what was going on. And I think that's that can be present challenges to the small towns. And so now that we're all on the same channel, we all speak the same language. If somebody needs help, we're going to go help them.
And didn't Bill Wayborn, wasn't he from Dalworthington Gardens, or was he from?
Did. Yeah, I knew Bill before he was the sheriff, and he was over at DWG. And so he came from small town. And so that's one of the reasons he has, I think, really transformed the sheriff's office to be a good partner for the small towns. I rely on the sheriff's office a lot. If we need like a SWAT team, we typically will contact them first. Not that Fort Worth would not be willing to help us. They would, but sometimes Fort Worth is busy. And so we rely on the sheriff's office not only for SWAT, we rely on them for the crime scene assistance that they provide. We also rely on their fugitive team. They have a phenomenal team that goes out and searches for suspects that are on the run. And so, yeah, I can't say enough about Sheriff Bill Wayborn. his primary responsibility certainly is managing their jail. But at the end of the day, if we call him for help, he's going to send the cavalry to come help us. So I think coming from a small town himself, he kind of sees that value that the sheriff's office can provide. And then our county commissioner, Manny Ramirez, Manny has came from Fort Worth PD, so he came from the big city. But now that he's over here, I mean, we have frequent meetings with his team and always sharing, our room for growth and opportunities here as well.
Because you're in his precinct, correct?
We're in Commissioner Ramirez's precinct, and his chief of staff also came from Fort Worth PD. And so Tracy Knight. And so we always are in communication, and they're always willing to help us as well. So I will tell you right now, we have the best setup. And I'm not just saying that because we're on the podcast. I mean, we frequently tell this story, but I can't imagine this level of success we've been able to achieve is because of these partnerships, whether it's the skipper, Captain Huffstetler, whether it's Commissioner Ramirez, whether it's Sheriff Wayburn, whether it's the small town chiefs around us. We just enjoy a lot of partnerships, and we meet almost monthly. We have lunches with all the chiefs, and we're meeting quarterly on the threat working groups with the base and with Lockheed. I mean, you cannot imagine behind the scenes. Everything just is like a well-oiled machine, and it's because they're willing to meet us in the middle and engage in these partnerships.
And that's so good to hear, because it comes from your background and being out in the community, and that's you have a book that you wrote about the art of strategic communication, a police chief's guide to mastering sound bites, storytelling, and community engagement. So, I mean, you've written the book and you practice that, especially in the community engagement part, from where Mary and I can see how well you're doing. You mentioned Kevin Reeves over in Westworth Village. He's another one that's out there all the time at all the functions at NAS JRB and working with the different nonprofits that work out there and help our servicemen and women and their families. So that's a very important part. And then being the spokesman for the police for Arlington and probably for White Settlement too. I mean, you got to say the right stuff at the right time or you get in trouble.
Yeah, there's kind of a funny sidebar on the way this came about. When I came over back to White Settlement from Arlington, we're in the news a lot, and White Settlement wasn't always in the news very much. But I like to say we're in the news for positive things, and part of it is relational. Certainly, by being the chief spokesperson of Arlington for over a decade, I was able to bring media relationships into the town. But it's about storytelling. I always tell chiefs, if you're not telling your story, no one knows what you're doing. And so I'm always amazed at the level of engagement that we can achieve if we're just out there telling our story. And that goes back to what you just mentioned too, community engagement. I mean, if you ask most police chiefs, they're probably going to say the number one goal is to build trust. And the way you do that is you have to engage. You have to go and you have to host events. They have to see police officers in a different light, because most people come into contact with law enforcement if they're in an enforcement situation. Maybe they were stopped for a traffic violation, or they've called a police officer to their home because they've been victimized or something's going on. And so we want to engage not only in those areas, because obviously those are core priorities, but I'd rather see people at the park, at an event, or at something going on in the community that we can place police officers or create some programs where they come to us. And so we've been able to really turn that upside down and rethink on how we're going to engage, with the community. The backstory on the book, back in 2020, everybody remembers just what the country was reeling after the Minneapolis incident with George Floyd. And there were protests going on. There was a lot of things around the country, and even here locally, there were things going on. And I had the fortunate opportunity to get an invite to testify before Congress about what did law enforcement need to do to really change the paradigm, if you will, to get people to trust the police again? And so, it was a short amount of testimony. You don't get a lot of time there. And so I did my testimony, and out of that came this idea of, maybe we should create a handbook of sorts that can take some lessons learned on how to engage with communities. And so it took a couple of years from 2020 until really, early last year to get to publication. But that's the process of books. Books take a long time, especially, if you're going to a publisher. I guess anybody could probably self-publish a book pretty fast, but if you're going through the rigorous process where a publisher is doing all the behind the scenes, not only the marketing, but the scripting and the editorial of it and all of that goes on, it takes a long time to get something to market. And so we were able to launch the book. It's been extremely successful. I actually got a contract to teach every police chief in the state of Texas. They have to go through a 4-hour media class. It's actually legislatively mandated through our Texas Police Chiefs Leadership Series. We just wrapped that up this last month. And so I've been able to get in front of all 2,000 or so police chiefs in the state. And I can't tell you how many of them have reached back. Like they're just, they've been able to engage with their communities in a more positive manner, or they've been able to form better relationships with the local media, or they've been able to utilize social media or mobile apps or whatever they're doing to really get their messaging out. And so that's kind of been an intrinsic reward, if you will, for me, being able to see around the state just great work being highlighted. And so, certainly it's been a good pinnacle, a good bookmark, if you will, for my career to kind of, as I'm getting towards the end of my career, to highlight something like that. But I would be remiss if I didn't say a lot of people around the profession helped me on this book. It's not just a one that I came up with it. Certainly there are great people around the profession that have been doing this job for many years and being able to share lessons with me, and including my wife, who's also a great communicator. She contributed to the book as well, and just a phenomenal amount of success launching that last year.
And does your wife work for a white settlement?
Yeah, so she does handle the city side of communications. She was a police officer. She worked at Arlington for many years, and she ended up working at Mansfield, retired as a police officer in Mansfield last year because we were building a house in White Settlement, so she moved, and now she handles city communications. She also serves as the communications director for the Texas Police Chiefs Association. So you can imagine that she's busy managing a lot of the comms on the Texas side as well. But quite frankly, she can do that in her sleep. I have to work really hard at it. But she's got just, her degree is in marketing and public relations. Before she was a police officer, she worked at Six Flags Corporation. That's how she ended up in Texas, because she's actually from Jersey. And so she's been doing marketing, public relations, communications for the private world as well. And so she does a really good job. And so I did rely on her heavily as we move forward on trying to get the best script, if you will, in the hands of executives and communicators.
And you mentioned Mansfield. They have a really good police department too, don't they?
Absolutely. My buddy's the chief there. His name's Tracy Aaron. He's been chief there for many years, and they do some great work in the city of Mansfield. And again, it goes back to just being a storyteller, because if you're not telling your story, no one knows what you're doing. If you're not protecting your brand, it's unfortunate. There's good and bad nowadays with social media. The good is that police departments can get in front of things. They can tell their own story. They can highlight the great things their cops are doing. The bad is that people can say what they want without being factual about a police department. So you really got to harness the power of a good communicator to be able to be dialed in on and being observant on what's being said and making sure, do we respond, do we not respond, and all of that. And it goes back to, again, just to protecting your brand. And that's what I talk a lot about in the book, is that you got to have awareness on conversations. I'm sure y'all have seen, and all of our podcast listeners and viewers have probably seen, where somebody, just makes things up, right? They say things, and it's unfortunate people believe that. They'll see it on social media and think it's true, especially when it's said about a police department. But quite frankly, I always remind our community, always go to the official source, and that should be your local government. You should be able to trust your local government to put out the facts and get the story right, because there's just a lot of people that are unhinged, a lot of vile people, a lot of vulgar people in the world that will say what they want. It's more pronounced, I think, in the government side of things, or it's more pronounced in the law enforcement side. So we always have to be on our A game on being able to present our facts as they are. And then if we are in the wrong, then that's fine. We still need to present the facts, and we need to work hard to make amends and make sure that we're doing the right thing.
I think I was looking at your book, and I have to believe that there is so much crossover to anybody who has to get their message out. Because I was thinking, that will be a book that if I could get that in the hands of a couple of the board members for roll call, that do a lot of because we're not very good yet at using social media and Instagram and everything else to our benefit. But I can see getting that into some of their hands, and there's got to be some great crossover in there where they could use those tools to better get the word out. Not that we fill a lunch in 3 days.
Today,
getting the donors than getting the veterans to come to a lunch, right? So
tell him, hey Mary, tell him about today. We opened our reservation line for our luncheon next week.
At 9 o'clock this morning, we opened the RSVP link for our luncheon. We're moving back to Birchman, so we'll be way closer to you again. Right. And as of right now, we're at 341 of 500 seats already sold.
So hottest
$0 for veterans. So
yeah, I was going to say that's just a testament. People see the value and what roll call does and that program, and no doubt there are some evergreen kind of principles in the book, and there is a ton of crossover. I've got a lot of people that are not even in law enforcement that have emailed me or sent me a message saying, hey, I used it in my private business. And so there is a lot of crossover. And because, in reality, getting the best message out is not confined just to public safety. I mean, if you think about it, even if you're in the water department, or if you're in county government, or if you're a local, I don't know, let's say you own a local store that has a product that you're trying to get out, there is a lot of tried and true principles in there, if you will, to be able to put forth the best kind of media message, or the best marketing message, or the best way to protect your brand. So there is a lot of crossover.
And I saw the book on Amazon. It's only $20. So for nonprofits, especially that are out there trying for real, that you're trying to get, I call it the elevator speech, right? We always called it that. Do you have your elevator speech ready? If you get caught in the elevator with somebody who can help you,
yeah,
so your speech ready, right?
Yeah. The elevator speech goes like this. There is so many opportunities to tell your story, and the book really distills them down into several, we call them blueprints, little elements that you can employ to be the very best and to tell the best story that you can, that's going to make the media want to say, yes, I want to cover that event or that incident.
And cover it correctly.
Absolutely. I go back to, we're the official source of information. And so who knows better than the actual people that are that have the mission objectives? It's the same concept in the military, right? There's a lot of reporting in the military, but if it's not coming from a public affairs officer, if it's not coming from a genuine government source, you have to be a critical thinker. You have to really think about, is this slanted, or is there any kind of bias in this article? I see that frequently in things that I read online, and so you have to be very careful. And so, the book really just puts you on that career path if you're in this role of being a communicator, on how to get your best possible message out.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to seeing what it can do for a few folks that I want to, because we've got a big gun raffle going on right now, and it's going to end at the luncheon, and we could use to sell some more raffle tickets. And like police departments, we should already have hit all the police departments and everything else. And I think we have have missed some opportunities to get people out to our website to go sign up for that gun raffle. And it's 20 guns in 20 minutes. I think I know of at least one person who I think from their one ticket got 3 guns last time, because the ticket goes back in for $20, right?
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it's a great raffle, but it's our major breadwinner. And right now we could use a little push on that. So I think there's some communication tips in here I'm looking forward to.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's a whole section on audiences. It's all about knowing your audience. Number one, law enforcement, certainly there's a lot of folks in that profession that have collected guns, or, you know, they know a lot about firearms. And then secondly, law enforcement is very pro-military. I mean, if you're doing a fundraiser and you can tie it to the military, that's a great demographic to be able to pull in and say, hey, support our brothers and sisters that you know, serve our country. And so I noticed the public affairs officer, Sandy Owens, she certainly knows her audience, because the Navy ball is coming up. And she's been hitting us hard and heavy for some sponsorships, knowing full well that our police department is going to probably sponsor some of those things. Yeah.
So that community engagement is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, you have to have the trust of your community, because, like, I mean, let's face it, in the world, we're going to face a crisis from time to time. You know, it's not a matter of if, but really when. And we all know we're human, we're fallible. And so sometimes law enforcement agencies are not always on the high ground on maybe an incident that occurs. And so you got to have that trust on the front end to be able to navigate that on the back end. And so we do a lot of programs on community engagement. We do the elementary school reading. We serve as mentors for 4th grade program, where we go to the local elementary schools and we'll do some things there. It's called the Investigators Club Academy 4. We even think outside the box. You know, we know a lot of kids like astronomy, so, you know, we have telescopes. And you may be wondering, that has nothing to do with policing, but that's intentional on our part. If we can make an ally, if we can connect with the community through an astronomy program, through a reading program, through a mentoring program, then that's success in our mind. We also have, you know, Junior Police Academy for those kids that are ages 14 to 20. I call them kids, but really teenagers. If they have an interest in joining our law enforcement profession, they can join the JPA and come, and they meet every other week or so. And then we have a lot of different adult programs as well. You know, everything from Citizens Police Academy. We do that in English and Spanish. We have our Citizens on Patrol, where they come out, volunteer, drive around, and they serve as our extra eyes and ears. We have Dog Walker Watch, where, you know, we're trying to really capitalize on, we have tons of people that walk dogs. We capitalize on that, teach them on what to look out for, and to be participants in that program. Neighborhood watch groups, you know, we have those. I know a lot of people think that neighborhood watch is kind of dated, but there's still a lot of value. You know, if I'm in a neighborhood that has an active program and I'm going on vacation, it's easy for me to have my neighbors kind of watch my driveway, watch my home while I'm away, stuff like that. And so, you know, there's just tons of programs that we do out there, from, you know, young kids, teenagers to adults, because it's all about building trust. And that's really the backbone of community engagement. I know when we hire new police officers, they're ready to hit the streets, you know, chase the bad guys down. And that is a primary role. But I always remind them that really your primary goal for you as a new police officer is to build positive relationships. And you do that by engaging. You do that by going to a roll call if there's one in our neighborhood. You do that by going to the base, you know, interacting during the community events. You know, the 301st always does, I think they call it the Summer Olympics or something. I may have the name wrong, but, you know, you got all the airmen out there that are participating. It's always hot, of course, right? But I always tell the cops, hey, I need you to show up. And all I need you to do is go around, shake hands, encourage, cheer on, you know, the Air Force folks that are out there at these events. And that way you're building trust. That's part of community engagement as well. and it doesn't take a lot of effort just to go around and fist bump with kids in the audience and with everybody on the base. So it runs the gamut. We have formal programs, but it's informal as well.
Do you have a program where people that have security cameras register them with your city? So if something happens, you can say, hey, can you look at this time? And
Yeah, we have a program. It's called Neighborhood Eyes, and you can register your address if you have cameras. It doesn't give us a back door to your camera system, but what it does allow us to do, if there's an offense, let's say a crime occurred on that street, our detectives can check that Neighborhood Eyes database. And if they see that you register that you have cameras in that area, they may contact you saying, hey, we had an offense down the street. Can you check your camera on this date during this time range to see if you captured something? I'll give you a good example, a success story we had. We had a shooting a few months ago where this suspect had traveled to our city to under the guise they were going to sell some illegal THC vapes, which are a felony in Texas. And when the victim came out to show the money, that suspect ended up robbing the victim. The victim ended up getting shot multiple times. The victim actually survived. We didn't have a lot to go on other than, a Hispanic male driving a, suspect vehicle description. I think it was a truck at the time. But we were able to check the database, and we found out that there was a gentleman that had notified us that he had cameras several months ago, and he actually captured the suspect vehicle fleeing the scene. And that allowed us to quickly zero in on a shooting suspect, and we were able to make the arrest that day. So there's a lot of value in that program. Again, just by telling us, hey, I own a camera system. And, our police officers, they're going to canvass the neighborhood if there's a crime. They're going to look for cameras and all that. But as you know, camera systems have gotten really good. Sometimes they're super small. We don't even see them. We don't even notice them. And so it's a good program to let us know if you live in our town. And many cities do. The Arlington, we did the same thing there as well.
And what settlement, what's kind of the highest kind of crime you have as far as drugs, or what's the number one crime that you see?
Yeah, it's a great question. Luckily our town, we enjoy low crime rates. However, we always have challenges in certain areas. I would say it's a lot of our hotel and motels along the I-30 service road. We've had a lot of challenges there. Number one, we have a lot of overdoses, and we're seeing fentanyl like everybody is. And our officers actually carry Narcan with them. And I would say sometimes we'll respond a couple times a week to an unconscious person at one of those motels. Fentanyl is very dangerous. And, not only is it illegal to engage in that type of high-risk behavior, as we call it, but also you're putting your life at jeopardy because, I ran an overdose call about 2 weeks ago, and that guy did not make it. We administered Narcan, and, his life was cut short over presumably what we believe to be an overdose on fentanyl. And so that's kind of our focus areas, if you will. We do have a lot of contact with the hotel, motel owners and managers. We have several of them that try to help us out and participate, give us access to their cameras and this and that. And our police officers, they do a good job at patrolling. There's this old saying of high visibility traffic enforcement deters criminal activity. That's true. And so that's kind of our challenge areas on the narcotics front. And then, every summer, when kids are out, we have an uptick like every city does on property crime, usually like burglary of motor vehicles. This summer, there was no shortage of those type of offenders that we had to identify, get them in custody and all that. So, because we are surrounded by large urban centers, we have your typical fair share of what, type of activity. But from a per capita standpoint, man, our crime rate is very low, especially on the violent crime front. That's the positive living in a small town. We can get anywhere pretty fast. And so, there's a violent crime going on. We're going to be there within a minute or two, 3 minutes tops. When I worked in another city that was much larger, it may be 10, 15, 20-minute response time. And it's not that the big city was the issue. It's just, it's further distance to travel. A lot of times there's a lot of calls that officers are on. And so if it's a priority call, sometimes they have to hold. But in a small town, not so much. And so that's the good benefit of living in a small town, is that police action, that police presence is almost instantaneous when you call us.
And that's Benbrook's like that. They have a real quick response time.
Yeah,
absolutely. Almost all your small towns around us, Lake Worth, Westworth Village, again, Sampson Park, Lakeside, Azle. Yeah, you're going to have a much more quick response time than you are in some of the bigger jurisdictions.
And one thing that people don't realize, or there's some issues that the small police departments have that the larger police departments don't have, and that's when an officer gets injured or dies in the line of duty. A lot of times you don't have the resources that Fort Worth or Arlington or Dallas have. And we have some friends. This is Mary and Phil Alvarado, and that's your wife and you, at the Peace Officers Angel Fund. And Mary's son, Ricky, was an officer at DFW at the airport and got killed. I think it was about 25 years ago. He's a motorcycle cop and made a stop. A car hit him. But what they do with that fund, and you've been really involved with them, is that when there's an officer that has had injuries or something, they write checks to help defray the cost and help those officers in those departments in those little towns kind of survive through that. Whereas Fort Worth and Dallas, they can just throw a whole bunch of money at it. But the smaller towns, and that, I guess, with all your connections in the state with the police officers or the Police Chiefs Association, you know all those guys. Just like I think Cody, he's the police chief over in Haltom City.
Yeah, Cody Phillips.
Yeah, and they've had issues. Sampson Park had that officer that was shot in a training accident, and we had a big benefit for that officer to help her through her recovery. But it's just organizations like that a lot of people don't hear about, but it's kind of the lifeblood for the small departments.
Yeah, the Peace Officers Angels Foundation is kind of serves as that intermediary, if you will, between when benefits, if at all, that they apply would start and when the incident occurred. There's a lot of good, 501c3s, a lot of good benefactors during a line of duty death. But there was kind of a void when someone would be injured. And that's really where the Peace Officers Angels Foundation steps in. And it's usually no questions asked. I mean, literally, if there's a request, the board can quickly come together and end up approving that and then getting that check to the family. Again, because, if you think about it, when you're injured in the line of duty, if it's a serious injury, you're not able to work extra jobs, which a lot of police officers rely on that income, especially in the small towns, because their wages are, not as high as some of the larger urban areas. And so your family's taking that financial impact. And so the Peace Officers Angels Foundation has really been the gold standard, if you will, across the state of Texas, to be able to, come in and just help out in a minute's notice. And so, Maria and Phil, they are since retired, but their legacy continues. And they did start that to honor their son, Ricky. Matter of fact, just yesterday, as of the date that we're filming this, Sunday was there was a huge event at the Rangers ballpark. It was the Peace Officers Angels Foundation fundraiser, where proceeds from some of the ticket sales went to their foundation. And so we also do what's called the Dining with Heroes, where police officers will go to a restaurant, will serve as kind of, honorary wait staff, if you will. And again, there's usually proceeds from those as well that will support this foundation. So yeah, just a great organization to be a part of. I've been a member of the POAF for probably decades as well. And even when I came back to White Settlement, I continued on to help them because they do a great job and they really do fill the void. Because again, if someone is killed in the line of duty, there are a lot of benefits the family will eventually get. Texas Police Chiefs Association will step in and fill some immediate needs there. But if you're injured in the line of duty, there's not very many organizations that will help out. And so they fill that void, if you will, from the time of the injury until additional like workers' comp or whatever will kick in.
And I've got one last question. Our time's almost up, but what's your biggest challenge in White Settlement, Texas, as a police chief?
I think the biggest challenge for us is always looking for ways to stay relevant in the sense of we're just kind of overshadowed by larger areas, but our community certainly wants to maintain that hometown feel. They want to certainly be able to, when they pick up the phone, they want the police officer right then and there, right? And we do the very best that we can, but just like like I said earlier, a lot of our crime issues that we deal with, they do require officers to respond. Well, that takes an officer off the street. So we have limited resources to deal with all of the calls for service. And that's kind of presents a challenge because, again, if you are calling in, you don't want to hear from the dispatcher that, okay, well, all the officers are tied up on a call. They'll get to you as soon as you can. So that's been a challenge that we've had to kind of work through. But again, one of the things that we became creative on, if it's a priority call, a lot of times our neighboring jurisdictions will step in and help us. Even Fort Worth, sometimes if they're not busy, they will come in and assist as well. So we try to work through those, but it's really making sure that we remain relevant in the eyes of the community, that we're still here for you, even when we have a high call volume or when there's a major incident. Because you can imagine if there's a major call for service, like a shooting call or a serious injury crash in our town, that can really be a drain on our resources because we are small. And so that means that sometimes calls for service have to go on hold and all of that before we can manage that call load. And so we'll continue, though, to be innovative and look for opportunities. Our sergeants do a great job. They're the shift supervisor. They do a great job on managing the time load on that as far as making sure that something's not holding so long. But at the end of the day, that remains a top priority for us to manage through those challenges.
And y'all do a good job. And, just being on the podcast with you today gives me a greater appreciation for the city of White Settlement because, just like you said, that a lot of those on the I-20 and 820, it's the hotels. And then, you've got Cherry Lane and Las Vegas Trail with spillover from Fort Worth sometime that cause the problems that you have to deal with. So.
Yeah, we're up for the challenge. But again, it goes back to how we started the podcast. It's all about partnerships. Fort Worth has been, if there is something that spills over, they're always Johnny on the spot right there to help us out and navigate. I didn't mention we are a member of their real-time crime center as well. And so they get on our channel and vice versa. We'll get on their channel and coordinate resource deployment and all that when there's a major incident. So really appreciate the invite. Certainly, I've looked back at some of the previous episodes and there's just some great guest speakers you've had on that have had really phenomenal careers. But it's always for me, just, what can we do to give back? I would challenge anybody that's listening to the podcast. There are so many ways that you can get involved to support, whether, again, that's some of the military connections or whether that's some of your local community connections. Find a way to volunteer, find a way to support financially some of these organizations because we have a lot of community need and the base. There's a lot of need there as well. People don't realize it, but without some of the programs that we do, some of the folks that are stationed here it would be a more difficult, challenge for them during some of the holidays or
Yeah.
some of the other things that are going on. So appreciate the work that y'all do.
And then we have the food pantry at the base, and that helps a lot of families. And then the Thanksgiving meals that we give out. So,
Oh yeah,
and,
there's just there's so many ways to get involved. So appreciate that.
and you're hiring, so
We're always hiring. Our next civil service test is coming up. You go to our website, wspd.us, click on the recruiting tab, and you can get signed up there. And we're always looking for great folks, especially if they have local ties or if they have military ties. Certainly want to hear from you because we have a lot of veterans that wear the uniform here in the local hometown police department.
and if you were raised in White Settlement, there's a good chance you could be police chief someday.
Absolutely. I'm proof of that.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. It's been a real honor to have you. Thank you for your service in the Air Force. And thank you for your service in the communities, Arlington and Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and now White Settlement. And we just appreciate all you do for our military because you are out there all the time supporting our military and our veterans. And
Yeah,
just
we need to get you to a lunch now that we'll be right back in your backyard again.
Yeah, Birchman's right down the street.
Yeah,
So
22nd, you have to come out and pop in.
I'll tell you a secret about that. If you just come with your uniform,
Yeah.
Mary will let you in.
Right.
Yeah, I'd probably donate. It's a great cause. So yeah, excited. But no, Mary, Rick, thank you so much for the invite. And let us know if you ever need anything from our department or our city. We're always happy to step in. My boss is a member of the regional coordination committee as well that protects the interests of the base. And so let us know if we can ever be of assistance.
We'll do that. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
See you later. Bye-bye. Well, Mary,
Small town boy makes it big. That's for sure.
all the way to the big
Isn't
time.
that a lesson for so many people that think, oh, if I grew up in a small town, I'm just never going to make anything. But boy, he sure did, didn't he?
He talks about like the Kmart. I forgot there was a Kmart there before there was a Walmart. But
yeah, long time ago.
And Chris does do a lot of stuff at the base and through the Fort Worth Airpower Council, Holidays for Heroes, and Airpower Foundation. So he's out there on the cutting edge of helping people.
Yeah, for sure. We need people like that helping us and protecting. Really, there are so many. I was surprised that he didn't go through because at 18 he could have been military police. Back then it was two different AFSCs. There were security police and then the folks that did so some of them had two different jobs between the military police side and the security posture. So that one was on the runway and one was at the gate. They merged those years ago and in the Air Force, and so they can do all of it. So it's pretty cool to see how it's transitioned, but yeah, I was surprised that that wasn't the schooling that he went to. But transportation, really it's just a matter of getting the military under your belt. You get that discipline, you figure out what you want to do, and then you have the education benefits to go use the way that he did. And, you go from, that to being a police chief. Yeah. I mean, quite an example for young folks.
A police chief in the town you grew up in.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Very cool.
And we have roll call coming up the 22nd.
22nd.
August.
Yep. Next Friday.
And the reservations are filling up very fast.
Right.
So, we just opened the reservations this morning and we cut off about 500.
I cut it off at 480 because that leaves me a little playroom for the volunteers. And right now we're at 355.
So you go to roll-call.org and you can find a place to make the reservations. You just go in and sign up to be a member of Roll Call. Doesn't cost you anything. We just need your information so we could send you the email every month with the newsletter and the reservation line.
Yep. And if you're a veteran, it doesn't cost you anything for lunch. All we ask is that any non-veterans that join us, if able, contribute the cost of the meal, which is $15. So signing up is free. And if you're a veteran, coming to the lunch is free. So you got nothing to lose.
And then, if you're like me and your granddaddy gave you a lot of wisdom, my granddaddy always said, Ricky boy, there's no such thing as a free lunch. He didn't know about roll call. So
That's
if he knew about roll call,
it
he
is a
wouldn't
free
say
lunch,
that.
right?
And at the luncheon, we've got the 20 guns in 20 minutes. And this is just a great way to, one, help roll call by buying tickets, but it's a great chance to possibly get 1, 2, or even 3 guns in the route, maybe 4. We might have somebody that wins 4.
You never know.
They draw a name and they win a gun. They put the name back in and they get another chance. So it's 1 ticket for $20 or 6 tickets for $100.
Yeah.
And it's somebody that likes to get guns at raffles like that. Some days it's been my lucky day at some other functions, and won a couple at one function, and then a week later won another one at another function. So I hope I can keep that winning streak going at the 20 guns in 20 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And every $15 that we bring in feeds a veteran, and that's what's really, really key. So, if you're not able to get on the website, let us know. You can reach out to us, email us, just give us a call. We'll get you hooked up with a paper ticket if that's what you need, because you're not comfortable. Some people aren't comfortable. I get it. They don't want to put their information in online. It's very secure. We don't have a security issue, but if you're one of those folks, then we can do cash or check, and we can do you a paper ticket just the same. So it's not a big deal. And we're going to draw those names at the lunch next Friday, and we'll do it throughout the lunch so that it's kind of spread out in there as we're honoring one of the last surviving original member of Roll Call, Jack Dye. We will be honoring him for his 100th birthday coming up on the 28th of August at the luncheon.
And I know that Mary's said it several times, but for the people out there that know that for the last year, we've been meeting at Willow Park Baptist Church. We're coming back to the church that opened their doors back about 2015 to Roll Call. Birchman Baptist Church let the organization use their facilities. And so they've had renovations going, but now we're back, and that's 9100 North Normandale in Fort Worth, Texas. So don't drive out to Willow Park thinking there's going to be a luncheon. It's going to be back at Birchman. Right. That's at the corner of Interstate 30 and 820 in Fort Worth.
Yep. Gonna be a great day. We're really looking forward to it.
Next month, on September the 26th, there's going to be an employment workshop and career fair kind of geared for veterans. So you can go to the city of Fort Worth and find out more about that career fair. And then the Airpower Council, or the Airpower Foundation, is also a sponsor of it. And speaking of the Airpower Foundation, October the 25th is their Sky Ball. And like we talked about last week, they had the Patriot Roundup on July 31st, a phenomenal evening. It's one of those that you just think it can't get any better than that. But the Sky Ball takes even the Patriot Roundup to a high level. So just a lot of stuff coming up. If you want to sponsor a veteran, like Mary said, it's $15 just for the lunch every month. But for a $20 donation every month, you can help defray some of the costs, because we don't just provide lunch, but there's some other things that we do with our veterans, take them to different functions and do things for them besides just the free lunch every month. So a lot of stuff going on. And just go to roll-call.org and find out more about it.
Amen.
Well, Mary, it was very interesting having Christopher on the podcast today, and he's a busy guy.
Yes, he is.
A lot of stuff going. But thanks everybody for being a part of this, and we'll see you next week on Hometown Heroes.